Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg's coming to you on the 18th of March, 2021. Time on deck, 22:0600 hours Central Daylight Time. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. If there's a bear out in the woods wandering around, what real threat is that bear to you in your day-to-day life? Do you feel threatened by some bear out in the woods? However, if you go out in the woods and trample around its young, or you go at it and start poking a stick at it, might be the last thing you ever do. I would submit to you that we've lost perspective about Russia, what Russia is, what Russia represents, and what they can do, and what they would do. When I grew up, I was I grew up under the cloud of the Soviet Union as an adversary. They were considered a very formidable adversary because they had over 20,000 warheads that went boom, nuclear type. And they were considered a very big threat. If you look at Thucydides' trap as enunciated by Graham Allison, it might seem that we were destined for war with the Soviet Union. But I have submitted in the past that trap really wasn't applicable in this case, because it refers to when a rising power threatens to displace an entrenched power. Now, it might have appeared to us, and it did at the time, that the Soviet Union was indeed a rising power that could replace us. And militarily, they had hoped to do that. But they didn't really have the horsepower. They didn't have the oomph, because the Russians never had the population. They never had the industrial output. They never had the efficiency in their production systems, because communist states just don't have that, especially when they're smaller. But they did have a military that definitely had us concerned. But, when we really went toe-to-toe with them and come up with the Star Wars program that I used to work under, they just couldn't keep up with our spending. And it broke them. They collapsed because they were a rising power, but they didn't have the horsepower to keep rising. Unlike China today, at least for now. That's another story. But Soviet Union cracked trying to come up to our level and crashed. New leadership took over. Boris Yeltsin. They thought we'd reach in and help them out. Instead, we picked their bones clean. And then another leader rose to defend the interest of his people who were having their bones cleaned by our venture vulture capitalist. And, he had a nationalist streak. His name was Vladimir Putin. Probably the best thing that happened to Russia, because Yeltsin was an alcoholic goofball, to be honest. We had a lot of hope in him, and he was definitely a replacement for, the system that had existed before. But he just wasn't up to par, and he couldn't hold it together. And he didn't take care of the interest of his people, and it left a vacuum for a nationalist dictator sort to come in, and that is what Putin did, and looked after the interest of his people there. Now, at least within his power regime. Of course, he plays his own power politics. I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. He's former KGB. There's no such thing as a guy being his level of power being a good guy in a system like that. Or even here, I think. So, all that said, sick of Russia today. I've been to Russia. I was there in March of a year ago. No, actually, 11 years ago, March of 2010. I looked around. I was like, wow, these people are just like us. And they want the same kind of thing. They just want to go about their lives and live their lives and try to survive and raise children and have a family and, hope for prosperity for them that come after them. Down in the hearts, they're the same. People are the same everywhere. I don't care what race, color, creed, religion. I don't care if you're purple, green, if you got eyeball stalks on top of your head. That might be different. But if you're human, you got the same kind of desires, goals. You have a heart, a soul. You cry, you laugh. But look, and I looked around there. I felt at home in Russia. I'll be honest. And I looked at these guys and said, why would we want to kill these people? And then again, why would they want to kill us? It didn't make any sense. And indeed, the people there don't want to do that. Do our people want to do that with them? No, it's a matter of the leaders of the countries that lead us down these avenues and traps, playing their little power politics and the games of control and all their little machinations of high level finance and whatever's going on at the level, national level. People in each country, shoot, get us together, we get along just fine. But yeah, I know, like I said, I've been there, okay? I enjoyed Moscow, been to Moscow. The best trips I ever had. All that said, I didn't know why I do not like communism. They're not a communist state now. They're not a communist state. Maybe that's why the Democrats don't love me anymore. Anyway, let's get on with it. I'll just push all that aside. What is Russia today? They would like to reassert some of the power they have. They've lost a lot of the Warsaw Pact countries that they had in their satellite sphere. And, surely they'd like to take a few of them back, like maybe the Baltic nations, which are now in NATO. And that is a risk. If they try to go in there and take them over, and we've got a NATO treaty with them, we could get into Russia over that. And let's hope they don't come to that. And surely Russia would test us for those kind of things. But outside of things like that and things going on in Ukraine, which let me rephrase it, Eastern Ukraine, there's a lot of Russian people in it. So I can understand them taking at least that part, but not all of Ukraine. No. Crimea is Russian. The people there are Russian. So Russia's biggest warm water naval base. There's no way Russia would give that up without a full-fledged war. Any pretense of us is fantasy talking about that. We need to give, we should trade that for peace in other terms with them. But that's my opinion, because we ought to work with Russia against China. But we're forcing Russia into China's arms. And China is the longest term enemy of Russia, and they know it. But, and China's also our biggest long-term rival, and we know it. So why aren't we working together with Russia? Because of all our other little petty differences. But if you really fundamentally look at Russia, they are not a strategic, they're not a competitive threat against America here at our home base. If we left that bear out in the woods, it wouldn't bother us here in America. Now, we might get into a fight with that bear because we went in the woods and got into it with some other areas, or because we're poking sticks at it. It's not a wise move. Not a wise move at all. Because that bear has got some very bad teeth and claws. They have capabilities that could totally wipe us out militarily. Economically, yeah, they may hack us, they may do this, they may do that, and that's not good. Not at all. But does it merit going to full blows with them? I would say not, because the consequences are beyond your imagination. It is not, it's beyond what it used to be. Now, they don't have as many warheads, but what they got today, what they're developing, ought to have you quaking in your boots if we get into it with them. We don't want to go there. So, I'll bring this story to you, not to scare you, but to get you prepared and get your perspective in mind. And maybe we can get this out in society at a higher level, because right now we seem to think it's okay to just to be poking the bear. We forget what that bear really is and what it's really got, or we're ignoring it. We think, oh, this bear's weak now. We can pick at it. Not so. That's what we're going to talk about. Oh, by the way, if you don't know it's time to prepare, then Lord help you. Maybe some of your friends don't. So share my videos, because the object of these videos, when I talk these kind of things, you keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. Now, some people see some of these videos and go, well, Greg, you're all doom and gloom. No, I come here with solutions. And one of the solutions to this is that we open a discourse suggesting this is not the way to go. But we may fall into it anyway, because we seem to be making a lot of blunderous decisions, and what's going on in the world of politics, I'm about to show you, will raise your concerns quite a bit, because you won't believe what the leaders in the United States and Great Britain are doing. So you need to get ready in case it gets bad. In case it really hits the fan, it could hit the fan hard. So one of the things you should be doing is growing your garden. I got plenty of videos on that. Subscribe to my channel, by that notification bell, and click all, so that you can find my videos. And I'll do more on gardening, eating wild edibles, and other prepper type topics in that regard. I think I'll be doing some bushcraft topics. I'll do this in the future. I'll be doing bug out bus topics and other bug out topics. But in the meantime, other things you can do, because may not be successful when you first start gardening. It takes a skill, and then you need to have backup. So I would highly suggest you get long-term food storage. Now, some of it was beans and rice you get at the big box store, and I've done videos on that. But also, one thing that can really help you is this 25-year long-term storage food. And I have a special at prepwithgreg.com, link below. Check out the links in my show notes and in my pin notes. Go to prepwithgreg.com because you can get a little better than 20% off if you buy a 4-week supply, which is 2 of these buckets, a little bit less than 20% off if you buy 1. So a little better deal if you buy 2. But we're talking about, hey, just $8.10 or 11 cents a day for meals. This is good food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with drinks and desserts. A deal that make you definitely a winner because this is real food, guys. And what's more, for bugging out, these containers here are easy to carry. They're easy to store, easy to bury, to make caches out of. And if you need to put them in your backpack, bada, that's 4 servings right there. Boom. It's got a little zip tie. Once you tear it up, and it's got a little zip tie, not like a can. You open a can, you got to eat it right then, right? Oh, you can do a little bit of time. Hey, guys, by comparison, this thing here, that's only 2 servings. That's a big old hard can. You want to carry that way? Yeah, you got to add water to it. But you can make, hey, I got videos on how to purify and sanitize water. A video. You need to check that video out. Okay, all that said. That's a great deal. Check it out, prepwithgreg.com. Now, let's go on with the story here. I'm going to share some things with you, and we're going to go through them real fast here. So I'm going to be all night doing this video. So we're going to do a share screen. Hang on. Let's see here. Give me a second. And do we want to start over here? Okay. We're going to start with the United Kingdom. Everybody thinks the United Kingdom is a has-been country. Well, it was for a generation because they got really deep in debt, kind of like we're heading. They had a big war debt to pay off after World War II, and it really depressed the British economy for over a generation. Well, they're just now shaking out of it. Now they're kind of standing up and discovering who they are, and they're trying to posture again and regaining, I guess, lost ground. But look here, the United Kingdom labels Russia top security threat. Well, Russia is a whole lot closer to the United Kingdom than is China. So I can see why they might say that. And they're issuing warnings also on China and promises to build more nuclear weapons. Well, that's not the biggest thing. What you see in the next article. So you can see here what they're talking about is spending roughly $33 billion, 24 billion pounds, increase just over the next 4 years. And this is to increase their nuclear arsenal. One of the things they had been talking about is they were talking about increasing the arsenal to 180 nuclear weapons, and now they're talking about 230. That's in here somewhere in this article. So I'm not going to try to pinpoint it. See, they're trying to increase the number on their Trident missiles that are in their 4 nuclear submarines, one of which they always keep at sea. See, and how about their aircraft carrier? Yeah, see, Britain is still a country. They're becoming more of a country. Oh, that's not an aircraft carrier there. Below that's the, I believe the S. What was the? Okay, that was in Israel. All righty, so let's go over here. There's another article on that. This one's a little more disconcerting because it talks about what they would go to war over, including using nuclear weapons against threats from emerging technologies. And what are these emerging technologies they're talking about? Well, as we get down here, what you will discover is one thing is they claim that since Saddam Hussein had, biological weapons, and so biological weapons and chemical weapons, they consider that to be something that would prompt the use of nuclear weapons. And they're making a point in here that they would have used them against Saddam Hussein. Yeah, imagine that. Who would have thought that? Well, so that really kind of puts it to a higher level, their considerations of what they would use them for. But come on down here and check this out, guys. I'm not going to read this whole article. I'm just going to show you the highlights. So now the latest review, this list of threats has been expanded to include emerging technologies. Although there is no explanation as to what these might consist of, the statement likely refers to cyber, artificial intelligence, and space threats. Yeah, so they go on to talk about cyber attacks. Yeah, hacking. Excuse me, the solar winds thing. There were those who said that we should attack Russia when the solar winds attack took place. Really? Are they prepared to do that? Do you realize what you're talking about here? So they're talking about threats posed by satellites in low Earth orbit, and also dealing with things that deal with like North Korea. So it looks like Great Britain's filling their Wheaties, or United Kingdom, whatever you want to call them. So here we go. So that's not so, Joe. But what did Joe say? He said President Vladimir Putin was a killer with no soul. Well, I don't know. Joe, are you going to scare the Mad Vlad? Mad Vlad just may not want you sniffing him. Just kidding, guys. This is not a joke, though. This is not a joke because what else did he say? He also said, if I can get my Zoom always fights my changing tabs up here. Biden calls Putin a killer and vows, oh, come on, ads, vows he will pay a price for interfering in the election. I heard Iran also interfered in the election on the other side. Interesting. Pay a price. Well, there's been a lot of accusations about various people having their thumb in that, huh? Well, pay a price. That's very loaded language. It'll be sticking the bear because the bear didn't take too kindly to it. And Mad Vlad got mad. And he reacted. Russia reacted. And one of the things Joe said, or Mad Vlad said, is that it takes one to know one. And so he said, hey, the people that make accusations make these accusations because that's the way they think. That's the way they are. They project onto other people who they are. You know, I think I've said that. A lot of psychologists say that, right? I've said it in a previous video myself on here. Interesting. That Vladimir Putin took that tactic, but he also picked on the United States for our history of slavery and genocide of the American Indians. So, of course, you know, he would do those things, but yeah, so he jabbed back. But, you know, these folks over there, they're somewhat less than thrilled with these so-called threats, including telling them that they're going to pay a price. So before we start picking on Mother Russia, you need to understand that they have a little different philosophy now these days about the use of weaponry. Because they don't have that strong conventional force, they may be more inclined to fall back on their nuclear weaponry than they were previously. And it includes us here, talking about a Russian white paper in this report here that says it included language about preventative nuclear strikes. Well, you know, George Bush talked that way back in 2002. Yeah, when we had their nuclear, you see that? Wow. And additionally, Russia has talked about using nuclear weapons to de-escalate a conflict. What? You got to be kidding me. Now, that is mad. That is nutso. And we go, let's just Russia, Greg, what are we worried about? Well, you got to think about what they got. Oh, yeah, by the way, this comes to us from our national interest news guys. And I think they do a pretty good job of reporting stuff. A lot of ads in here. They do a pretty good job of reporting. So let's go over here and see what Russia might throw at us. Well, we know they've been developing hypersonic weapons. Supposedly these hypersonic weapons are to enable them to evade our missile defense. A lot of the stuff they're developing, they claim they're developing to help them evade our missile defense. Well, they're trying to really evade something that's non-existent because we don't have a national level missile defense. We have two missile sites, one in Vandenberg Air Force Base and one at Fort Greely, that are intended basically to give us defense against a very limited strike from North Korea. That's about all they can handle. They definitely couldn't handle an onslaught from Russia because we just don't have that many systems in the ground to do that kind of job. So, but what the hypersonic missiles can do is get here a lot faster, very fast. They actually reduce the threshold at which we have to respond to figuring out if we're under attack or not. And as many of these come in cruise missiles that are hard to detect, maybe we don't know. We may not know they're coming. We may misinterpret. This may put us more in a hair trigger environment. So this actually makes things far more dangerous, because I've explained in the past in other videos how there have been several close calls with the Russians, the Soviet Union back in the old days, including Russia afterwards with Boris Yeltsin, in which either side thought they were coming under an attack from the other. But time showed that it wasn't a real attack, that it was something else, be it a Black Brant rocket being launched in a scientific mission from Norway that almost got Yeltsin to nuke us, to computer errors. This happened many times on both sides. But fortunately, we had time in those days, because it took, it takes some time for the missiles to go over the poles and come in after each other, not 45 minutes. So there's time to figure out, is this real or not? But when you're dealing with hypersonics, you don't have as much time. There's very little time. So this is not a good development, but it gets worse, because Russia's actually developed a nuclear-powered, or they're in the process of developing this nuclear-powered hypersonic missile called Skyfall. That's what we call it. Yeah, so this missile has a nuclear engine on it, so much powerful that it could just fly around and keep flying around. The SSCX-9 Skyfall. This thing could fly around for months, out and do raster scans all over the ocean, here, there, and yonder. You know where it is, and it just comes in and launches an attack. Let's see. Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey feared when he described the SSCX-9 as crazy. See that? Check this out, guys. It's what crazy? Yeah, exactly. It is. It is just that. Wow, this is nuts. This is nuts. Nuclear fueled missiles, not warheads, fuel. That stuff lasts a long time. You ain't got to go retank. But they're hazardous to develop. They've already had accidents with these guys. We started development ourselves sometime back. We called it the Flying Crowbar for a nickname, but we thought it'd come back at us. We decided not to develop that. And here's their other big development. Yeah, this is called the Sarmat. This is their nuclear missile that they have done, released videos on, showing them attacking Florida. They claim one of these could take out the entire state of Texas, or a nation like France, just one of them. So they could launch 10 very large MIRV, independently targeted warheads, or 16, more regular sized warheads. So the 10 highly targeted, well, they could be Tsar Bombas, or maybe they would be, we'll talk about Tsar Bomba in a minute, or maybe it would be those highly maneuverable, again, MIRV, hypersonic warheads you're talking about. So they're really getting into this hypersonic stuff. So Sarmat was reportedly named for nomadic Samaritan tribes that lived, present day Russia. Okay. Hypersonic boost glide weapon. That's your hypersonics we're talking about putting on them. So guys, this is no joke. It's believed they could actually launch this over, instead of coming over the North Pole, launch it around Antarctica and come out at our soft underbelly. We wouldn't even see it coming. This is no joke. This is not something we want coming at us, guys. This is a very formidable strategic weapon that we don't want to have to deal with. Now, you see a lot of different articles about its capabilities, pro and con. But guys, we don't want to see the RS-28 Sarmat coming at us. Trust me. But let's go a little one further here. This is probably the last thing we want to see. Now, this is popular mechanics. There's some errors in this article, but there's a lot of articles about this. I just want to grab the Apocalypse or Tsunami torpedo, the Poseidon. Yes, Russia has a Poseidon torpedo. The thing is 6 feet in diameter, 65 foot long, and has a nuclear engine. This is a mini unmanned sub launched by a larger submarine. There's only 4 submarines you can launch it right now. They're developing some for this. This thing is going into service. They're testing this thing now. It was sized to be able to carry a Tsar Bomba. And where Popular Mechanics makes a mistake is they call this thing the Tsar Bomba. This was actually a half-scale Tsar Bomba, because they couldn't put the whole thing on one of their aircrafts and drop it without losing the aircraft. And this thing created this blew their mind when it went off. The largest bomb ever detonated in human history was this half-scale Tsar Bomba at 50 megatons. They have a 100 megaton version of this, and it would just fit into this 6-foot diameter. A lot of people think this is why this submarine is 6-foot diameter, and they claimed it was a 100 megaton device initially. Now they're kind of backpedaling, oh, 2 megatons, 2 megatons. If it's just 2 megatons, why do you need a 6-foot diameter torpedo? You don't. You don't. That's the scary thing. It's thought this thing could actually crack the continental shelf. Yeah, it could kick up tsunamis. It could wipe out one of these an entire coastal region of a nation. Maybe 3 of these would do an entire United States. Something like 5 would certainly take care of our coastal regions. They're developing 16 of them. So maybe they allocate just a handful of our coastal regions and 5 or 6 for redundancy, and the rest will probably be going after our aircraft carriers and other targets, submarines, whatever. I don't know. This thing is devastating weapon. I mean, you know, what would happen if you had a tsunami 1,000-foot high coming onto the coastal area of your country? Yeah, it's going miles and miles and miles inland. All of the coastal cities will be gone. Radioactive flood. It don't matter, it's radioactive. You're going to drown. This would destroy the United States. Of course, they have EMP super weapons too, my friends. And I told you, an EMP super weapon is worse than probably an entire nuclear strike. So, guys, it's no joke. Russia has weapon systems that are no joke. Now, there's, you know, a lot of speculation as to, you know, some of this bluff. Is it this? Is it that? Guys, it ain't worth finding out. It really isn't. We need to quit poking the bear. We need to find ways to make terms of this bear for containment of China. And I would say we don't want to poke China either. We just want to contain them. Give it a little time so that they don't, you know, feel their Wheaties about being so expansive and aggressive. Given time, they're going to lose that. We'll talk about that in a future video. If we can avoid a war with Russia or a war with China for the next 40 years, we may be scot-free. There's the hope. I'm not all doom and gloom. There is hope, but we got to work it. And our politicians are doing nothing to help us when they're talking about, you know, hey, you hacked us, you're gone. Hey, you're going to have to pay for bullying in an election. You're a killer with no soul. All this name calling. You know, well, that's just maybe that's just a kabuki dance, guys. But guys, this ain't smart. It's not good. It's not good to be poking the bear in the neighborhood. Yep, that guy right there, he's not joking. So, Joe, watch it. Be careful, man. Don't try to bite him. All right, Biden, no biting, Biden. All right, it's enough of that. I'm gonna stop that share. We're gonna bring this video to a close. We live in a very perilous time. The international tensions are off the charts. Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, either one of these nations could take out our power grid. That's bad enough to do our nation in completely. Done videos on that. A war with them, you usually have some military doctrine. First thing you'll do is take out the enemy's power grid, and there's our weakness. I've chaired 2 power grid defense conferences. I am on 2 national level power grid defense committees right now. I am working this, and I do bring in guest speakers from time to time from these committees to talk to you. There's things we can do in this area, and you'll be seeing more about that. We need to get a power grid hardened. You know, Texas, would you believe that Texas actually does have one of the best power grids? If they do interconnect it more, they'd be more vulnerable in an EMP type event or a solar coronal mass ejection. So some people, oh, they need to interconnect. No. So when the best of the best goes crashing in the West, then you need to know that there's something in which we need to invest. That's getting a hardened power grid. You don't have to force this with these power grid companies. They sure didn't help the people in Texas, did they? And it's the same way nationally. I've talked about that a lot. But we can take that on. We're going to. You know, guys like Mike Mabee and Ambassador Hank Cooper. I've had on my channel both of them. Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, General Ken Krosniak. Yeah, and Ambassador Cooper. When I was working on the SDI, he was a man in charge of it. Pentagon level. Top brass. Well, not brass, he was civilian leadership. All right, guys. So there's the skinny. The skinny is, oh yeah, this is a Space Force pin, guys. It's not a star for those that somebody made me some crazy accusations. Cut it out, guys. You know, I'm here to help us get through what we're in. And the whole purpose of this video, first and most, is you know you had a prep, but all these other channels tell you that. But I'll go beyond that. We're going to do things to try to establish peace. And what you need to do here is talk to your representatives. Say, hey, you know what? We need to make peace. We need to be more intelligent as to how we deal with the Russians. You make your representatives know that. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you want to know how to contact your representatives, go to freedomrestorationfoundation.org, and there's a big list in there how to find out who your representatives are, how to find out what the bills are, how to track them, and how to contact them, phone numbers, email, the websites, state and federal level, and just it's chock full of information, stuff that you can act on yourself. I'll be giving more on this in the future, but our politicians need to know this is not the way to go. We don't need to be poking the bear. Let it alone. Let it go back in the woods. Now, we need to let it know that it shouldn't be picking on everybody else, but you know, there's a limit as to how far you go with that. Of course, we do have a NATO treaty, those Baltic nations, and that may be a source right there. So we have to figure out how to be smart about that. Let Russia know, hey, don't mess with them. This is off limits. See that, or we need to figure out, are we willing to risk our nation for those nations? Because that's what we're talking about. If we're willing to do that, then we need to make sure Russia knows to back off. If we're not, we shouldn't be bluffing. But who's making these decisions? Some politicians, some generals. Did they talk to you about it? I think not. What do you think about it? Some of you are ready to take them on. I've got friends, good friends, who are from those Baltic nations, and they hate Russians. Oh my gosh, woo! And I've got friends from the Ukraine. I've had them on both sides of that. One was actually in the Soviet military, and then some others, no, they can't stand them. So, yeah, there's a lot of division out there in the world. There's a lot of threats. We better be smart. If we're really smart, if we can get through these next few decades, we might be home free. But we got a long way to go. And we got to be really, really smart and really, really aware. Our eyes better be open and our heads better be on a swivel. And you better be prepared personally, because these politicians don't seem to have the smarts sometimes. It seems like they just want us to get us into it. That's what we got to watch out for. You know, they speak with forked tongues, as we all know, as they have been accused, especially these politicians. They, they get agendas. They get behind. They're often very, very short-sighted, very narrow-ranged, and that's where the threats are. They don't know. They may be elected to represent us, but are they really representing us? What are they representing? Who are they representing? You know, we need to ask these questions, no matter who's in office. These questions are always valid questions to be asked of anybody serving in office. And we need to let them know that they work for us. If they're, you know, at least here in the United States and in other Western countries. And we need to make it known that we need to figure out how to get through this stuff. No, we can't afford to be run over. Never, never, ever. But there's some smart ways of dealing with these things. We got to talk about that. But there is very much a risk of war. The risk of war is going up with Russia, with China, with North Korea even, and even Iran. More than you might think. I'll be talking more about these things to come up with. But it's not all doom and gloom. Don't give up. Keep praying. We can work our way through these things, but we may not. We may not. There are prophecies. There's things written in a good book. And when it seems like we're living in those times. So be ready. That's the top thing. Be ready physically, economically, spiritually, mentally, every way you can. Just be ready. Be ready for the bad times. Be ready for the good times. And always keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. And never, ever panic. Who else tells you that? Anyway, all right, ladies and gentlemen, have faith, but get ready. Get ready. And with that, I'm going to say, leave a comment below. Tell me what you really think. Do we need to go poke that bear? Does it need to poking? Some of you do think so. Some people tell me it does. I've been told that by quite a few people. We need to poke that bear. What do you think? Tell me in the comments below. And with all that, I'm going to say, hey, I don't want to poke the bear. I'd rather make friends with that bear, because there's something else bigger out there. And we could use an alliance with a bear. But I don't know if we're going to go there. But we'll see. Thank you for watching.